Welcome to the Living Room Vibe podcast. I'm your host, Danny Lourdes, creating a space where real people have raw conversations. Make yourself at home and let's get into it.
Y'all, today is extra special because I've got my sister, my best friend, my partner in crime right here with me. Let me introduce you to Destiny Sanders, who, besides being my sister, is literally the other half of my brain when it comes to keeping it real. Like, if you've ever seen us together, you already know the vibe is about to be incredible. I swear, between your family, Destiny, and mine, we could write a whole book on cultural mix ups, which actually leads perfectly into what we're going to be diving into today, which is code switching in love, being your authentic self while being in a relationship. But before we dig deep, I got to know, did you bring my snacks?
Girl, what
Did
snacks did you want?
I'm just saying, did you bring my snacks?
I got some sunflower seeds.
You know, we we can we can chew on those a little bit. All right. So examining cultural identity and how it affects relationships, it's almost like learning to dance to two different beats at once.
Hmm.
At first, you're stumbling all over the place. Eventually, you create your own rhythm. So, speaking of rhythm, Destiny, tell our listeners about how you and your boo thing Brad met.
Okay. We met. Brad and I met, I would say, 21 years ago on eHarmony. So our drums
Oh,
were very different. Our beats were different because we met on eHarmony. I'm not sure if anybody even remembers eHarmony, if it's still a thing. But yeah, we met online via eHarmony. And I knew what I was looking for. He knew what he was looking for. And I had been on there for, I would say, some months. I gave it about, I think, 6 months before I decided I wanted to maybe like end the service, because you pay for it. It's not not a free service. And the last match I had fell through. There were some things going on, and then right when I decided I'm not going to continue the subscription because this is costing me money, I gave it a shot. I got a little email saying you have a match.
mm.
And I was open. I was open to a human being. I didn't care what color they were, what race they were. And this country bumpkin cute white boy popped up on my email saying I had a match, and I said, "Oh, okay." And yeah, we started. Of course, through the guidelines of Harmony talking, and then we decided to, continue. Once the subscription ended for me and him, we decided we wanted to continue, and in July we'll be married 20 years. So here we are.
Woo, wow, wow, wow. Long time, long time.
Yeah.
So take me back to when you and Brad first started dating.
Hmm.
What were some moments where you felt like you had to switch up your personality or the way you were speaking during that courtship time?
Girl, you know me. I didn't do that.
I know.
That is that is not me. I didn't switch up anything. So let's to be very real and transparent with you. Because of being a black woman, because I have a disability, I was very upfront with him from the get-go. And then plus, because we weren't meeting in person at first right away, I felt like that was the time to be like, hey, this is what it is. If you don't want it, we have distance between us to be, so it's not so hard, right? um
Right.
and so I was very like upfront, hey, this is what's going on with me, my health. Is this something I'm black, blackity black black. You know, people know that I'm black, because I mean, being really, because I'm like, I wasn't in it just to feel like, kind of like, hey, I'm gonna date around. I wanted to find someone, date, and then move on from there and possibly get married. So I was very upfront. So that's why I was just like, did I? I didn't, because I couldn't afford to do that.
Right. Because one, you was paying for that subscription. You ain't have time for that.
And then I wanted to have someone really be interested in me authentically. So if I felt like if I would have switched things up or acted a different way that wasn't true to myself, then let's say, okay, we're moving along or progressing in our relationship, and then he wants to meet, because I was in Florida, he was in New York.
Right.
And it's like, do I keep it real and hope for the best? Or do I, make it put it in a pretty box, and then when he gets here, he's like, "Oh, this is not what I was expecting. I'm not about
Right.
them games. I want it to be for real from the jump." So we both knew, and he knew full well what he was investing in when we started talking.
Okay. So, what was it like when you first met his family?
It was different, not in a bad way. So Brad and I were vibing. We talked about the important things, at first, and then when we decided to get serious, he was like, "I want you to come up and meet my family." And you, girl, you remember? Because I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna bring my sister,"
That's right.
because,
Ride or die, baby.
and then plus because our mom put so many things in our head, and I was like, "I want to be safe," even though I felt like I could go, but she was like, "No, I'm taking
Ain't
Danielle with
nobody
me."
finna kidnap you.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Brad, he was raised traditionally Baptist, and my faith is non-denominational. So I know his dad is at the time was a pastor of a very small church in upstate New York, and I'm pretty sure it was all white church. But that's just I guess because of where they were located. Um, and it was just his family, accepted me with open arms. Um, but it was different because I am Brad's second wife, so he's been married before, and to a white woman. So
To
and
those who shall not be named.
it better not be named. I ain't never scared, but but it was just very different, and so I feel like more for not really for me, but I feel like for them it was very different.
Yeah.
So it was more of a cornflakes, and now he got cinnamon toast crunch with a little bit of Fruit Loops and a little bit of smacks and a little bit of honeycomb. So
All the things.
all the things, all the things.
So, that
Um,
time that you first met his family was also the time that you guys first met in person?
no, actually, he came down to Florida first.
Okay.
Yes, he came to Florida first and met our family first.
Right, right, right.
You were in college, you were away in college, but he came down and met mom and our and the boys, our brothers, and it was so cute. I remember like getting myself together. He was going to come to the house and have dinner with our family, and I can cook. I'm not just saying that, but I can cook.
You know what I'm
And
saying? Throw down in the kitchen, put your foot in it.
yes, but I was so nervous and just so like
You
wrapped
forgot the
up.
seasoning.
No, girl, I didn't forget to season it, but I did burn. I burnt the pork chops. I'm not even gonna lie. And when I burnt it, and mom had went to go pick him up from the airport. My mom says, "Hey, you take care. You making dinner. Don't worry about that. I'm gonna go get him." And when she got back, mom's face said it all because mom don't play about burnt food, especially burnt pork chops. And so
She
I'm
loves her
trying to play it
she
off
loves her
like
pork chops.
exactly. I'm trying to play it off like it's just a little extra seasoning. I got stuck to the pan, but mom didn't say anything, and the boys didn't really say anything either. They were looking at me like, "Girl, what's wrong with you?" But it's okay. So we all sat down, and I remember Brad. he, he was like, "Wow, this looks really great." He was so polite and so kind. Um, and then my mom was like looking like, "You gonna taste the pork chop?" She didn't say they were burnt, but she was like, "Go ahead, taste the pork chops, Brad." And so he did, and his face didn't miss a beat. He didn't make a face or anything. But I had tasted them and it was burnt. Girl, they was burnt. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't know why it was served. I should have gave us the vegetables, the mac and cheese, and it's called it a day. But no. And he said, okay. He chewed it up, swallowed it, drank a whole bunch of Mountain Dew. And my mom was like, "What do you think?" And he was like,
Now mom's trying to get him on the spot.
girl, what do you think? And he was like, well, he's like, I think they're a little blackened. And I think at the time, I think it was Dion. I think Dion busted up laughing because
Is it
mom was
one
like, "They're not
blackened on
blackened.
purpose?
They're not blackened." She's like, "They're burnt." And she was like, "Girl, what happened?" And so she started talking, and we were like laughing and stuff. Oh, I wasn't laughing at first, but when Brad was like, "It's okay," like, I this is great. He's like, "The mac and cheese is great," and he was like, "What are these right here?" And I was like, those are collard greens." Never had collard greens before in his life. And he goes,
Wow.
"These are really good." So, girl, when he ate the rest of everything else, he was fine. The pork chops didn't matter, but mom still to this day does not let me forget. She said, "That's how I knew he was supposed to be special because you don't burn food like that. Nobody can shake you like that." She was like, "But man, you burnt that." She still talks about pork chops. And I'm like, "Mom, let it go."
So during that first meeting when he came down to Florida, was there a moment that clicks for you, or when you first met his family, was there a moment that clicked for you that you were like, "Man, I know I can truly be myself with him."
I kind of already felt that way. Because a lot of the time, like we talked for almost, I would say, 7 or 8 months before we even met.
Okay.
I think one of the things that was really important for me is to see, honestly, my test was to see how he did with mom and the boys because
Mhm.
they're my heart. And I had already explained to him how important they are, right? And then just our upbringing and things we've gone through, and how this is my life. They're a part of my life. So for me, I felt like I could be myself, but I wanted to see how he interacted with them because that was
Mhm.
the most important thing for me. Because we were, how it goes. We were helping raise our brothers, so we
Look,
was a
close
package deal, pretty
family
much.
knit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And the boys at the time were in middle school, so I wanted to see how he interacted with them, and it was great because I was just talking to my daughter the other day about this, and I was just saying, when your dad first came down to meet us, or not us, your uncles and grandma, he brought gifts for the boys, and it touched my heart because he had heard me say little things about what they liked. Even Anthony,
Mhm.
he was like I think what 5 or 6,
Mhm.
and he took time to get them nothing like really big, but individually get them something that he knew they had interest in. And I didn't ask him to do that, even mom. And I was just like, I really appreciated that. Like you really took it's not just me, but you're taking interest in parts of my heart, right?
Mhm.
And even some things that mom had expressed, he made himself available to help her out with certain things. So that was important to me.
I love that. I love that from jump. He was like, he understood the assignment. This is a package deal.
Yeah.
I'm not here just for Destiny. I'm here to integrate into the whole family, and
Yeah,
did
I
it
think
with ease.
he knew that if he wanted to really integrate with me, he had to integrate with him. It wasn't
Right.
like let me win her heart and then we'll see how this goes with the rest because he knows that if they weren't included, it would be even hard for us to even progress
Right.
because the girl wasn't
So
my life.
what tell me like a the funniest cultural misunderstanding you feel like you've experienced with Brad. I know it's been over 20 years, so you
Oh
got many.
girl.
But whichever is the first to pop to mind.
The first I would say one of the first that popped to mind and one of the most recent was in during the pandemic. Um we was having late night pandemic conversations and one thing about Brad was when he's saying he getting ready to go to sleep, he getting ready to go to sleep. So he's
I'm
like,
telling you.
I'm laying down. Like we can talk. You got 10 minutes unless you need more. But if you need more, you're gonna turn a light on. We're gonna sit up because I'm going to sleep. And so I was just laying there, and I was like, "Hey, babe, there's a word that I heard the other day, and I don't know what it means." And so he was like, "What word?" And I was like, "Hootenanny." And I said it just like that, like real, like
Hoot nanny.
yes, girl, hootenanny. And he said, and at first he was like, "What?" And he goes, "Why are you talking so loud?" I said, "I don't know. I just feel like that's the way you should say hootenanny. You got to say it with some excitement."
Say it with your chest.
Yeah. And he was like, "Okay." He was so confused. He was like, "Okay, honey." And I asked, I said, "What does that mean?" And he was like, I don't know." And I said, "Why? You should." And he turns over, and even though it was dark, I could feel his eyeballs on me. He said, "Why? Because I'm white." And I said, yeah, I expect you to know certain things and educate me." And he was like, "Girl," he said, "didn't the other day you said you didn't know what a hog mog was or hog mall?" And I was like, "Oh, true, point taken." And he was like, "So why you expecting me to know what a hootenanny is?" And I don't know. And I said, "I'm gonna look it up." And he was like, I'm going to bed. You look it up. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk about this anymore. And so I look it up and I can hear, you know, when you get ready to go to sleep and your voice, your breathing start changing. You start,
Yeah.
so I started hearing that. So I started whispering. I said, babe. I tapped him on the shoulder and he was like, what, Destiny? And I said, I looked it up. And he was like, okay. And I whispered, I was like, a hootenanny is like a gathering and a dance, and you play folk music, and a hog mog is a pig's belly where you stuff other ingredients and you cook it and eat it. And he was like, okay, thanks for sharing. And I said, but babe, now we know. So now we know. And he was like, girl, I didn't need to know that. I'm good. And I said, well, I feel better that we're more educated on our culture. And he just turned over and he was like, I hope you have dreams of hog mogs dancing around a fire at a hootenanny. And I was just like, that sounds like a nightmare, but okay. But like things like that, like he's like, don't be expecting me to know things because you feel like I'm white and I should know because this stuff you don't know when you black. And I was like, true,
Yeah.
true, true. So that's one of the most funniest things. And when we think about it now, we laugh about it. But he was like, girl, stop expecting me to know things because I'm white. Like, I don't know.
Mm. Hmm. So when I think about being raised and all the craziness of our childhood, which can be a whole nother podcast episode,
Girl, for real.
how do you how do you feel like our childhood influenced your expectations in marriage?
Oh boy. Um, thinking about all the things that we have gone through and the example we had, I feel that my expectations honestly were low only because we didn't have an example of a successful marriage um,
Mm.
with our parents. You know, the things that we saw, abuse, substance abuse, all those things. It was very hard to, you hope and you dream, but it's like, just in case, I need to have a backup plan, just in case, because honestly,
Right.
that's how we were raised. Even love mom to death, but there were times where she was like, you know what, just make sure you got a backup plan in case X Y Z happen. And I'm sorry, in
Right.
case love it. I love our mom to death, but you know how we were raised. We were raised to, this is all great, but just have a backup plan just in case X, Y, and Z happen. And unfortunately, I still had that mentality in the back of my head when I got married. I was hopeful. I was out to be like, I want to prove to everybody, you know, but more importantly to myself and to our mom and our children that no matter what, I can have a successful marriage. Despite the example that we had, and honestly, it wasn't until I would say year 7, 6 or 7, that I was able to wholeheartedly say I let that go. And it was
Mm.
a deep conversation that Brad and I had. I was like, man, like we are good. Like, he is not the man. He's not my father. He's not the men that I grew up with that were, not examples. He is my husband, and he is not hurt me in these ways that I keep trying to sometimes put on him. And
Mhm.
I remember I don't know if I can't remember, we had just came back from a trip and we were having a good time and we are talking, and I was just like, you know what? I want to tell you something. He was like, what's up? And we've always been able to, that's one thing I love about him, that I can say what I need to say to him and he accepts it fully. Like, I'm just gonna listen,
Mhm.
and not judge you. I'm gonna let you say what you gotta say so I can just hear it.
That's the new thing. We listen
Listen,
and we
we
don't
don't
judge.
judge. Yes. Right. And so I said, hey, I want to tell you that I have been putting money aside um for a rainy day. And he was like, okay, well, that's cool. And I was like, no, not for a rainy day of, if the car breaks down or the wash machine stopped working. I said, it's money aside in case what we had stopped working. And he got quiet. He said, after like a long silence, he said, okay. And I said, it's not in an account that you know about. It was like,
Mm.
okay. And he was looking at me, and I felt like I need to squirm because I was like, "Oh Lord, what he gonna say? What he gonna do? Is this, he's gonna be really upset?" And
Lash out. Be like, what you think you is? Give me
exactly.
that account number.
He's just looked at me, and I remember I melted because he was like, "Why?"
Mm,
He's like, "Did I do something? Did I hurt you? Like, why are you doing this?" And I let him know that um I'm not doing it anymore, and that's why I'm telling him about it. And I felt like for me to be able to move on and tell him about it, I needed to come clean with what I've been doing. And that hurt me because I feel like, man, I could tell in his heart and his eyes I hurt him
hmm
by doing that.
Yeah.
And so I apologized to him, and I said, "You have not done anything wrong." And I said, "It's because of the way you love me that I feel like I can tell you this and make it right
Mm.
because of what you have been doing."
Yeah, to put your big girl panties on that one.
Girl. And then take whatever I had coming after that,
Exactly. Yep.
And he said, "Okay." And he let me know he understood, but it still hurt because I felt like I had to do that because
hmm
of other people's transgressions in my life.
Right.
And I said, "But I'm not doing it anymore. If you want to see the account, here it is. This is how much money we got in it." And I was like, "What you want to do with the money?"
Right. Where we going?
Yeah. And basically that's what we did. We paid some bills, and then we went on a trip.
No, that's right.
So I think that's the year we went to Vegas, but it was just that was so freeing for me, and it felt so good. And I felt like in that moment I realized that I don't have to have that he gonna leave you, he gonna abuse you, he gonna cheat on you mentality.
Right.
Um, that I can live free and be authentic in our marriage and not have to worry about the baggage of our parents
Right. Or
interfering with.
the expectation that it will fail.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like not only did we have our upbringing going against us, I just had my health. Having
hmm
muscular dystrophy is not easy. I know my health has been trying for him. It has been because knock on wood, I have been not in the hospital for I would say almost a year.
knock knock, baby.
Yes, baby. Um, but him taking that on and really just loving me through all of that. And when you find someone who loves you, like from the jump, not like I have to get used to this type of thing. We had a moment
Right.
like that. Like you remember the time when I have fell and we were newly married and we were in our apartment and he called you and mom.
Oh
Just
yes,
because I
yes,
was like,
yes.
just call them to let them know so they don't freak out.
hmm
Because I know the viewers are like, okay, she fell, but no, when I fall, I can't break my fall, so I fall hard, and I've broken my hip before. I've gotten concussions. My falls are always bad.
Yeah,
Um,
always.
yeah, so I remember the first time I fell, he was like, "What do I do? How do I help you?" And me having to walk him through that, and then saying, "Oh, okay, I'm okay now. Now let's call Danielle and mom because they're gonna flip, especially Danielle, and she doesn't
You
know what
know me.
happened." So yeah, and then he
And
was
by
like,
the
"I just
way,
want you to be
guys,
okay."
Danielle is me. I
Oh,
know
sorry.
Danny. I'm Danny on my show, but she not her calling me by my whole government name. But okay.
Yes, my bad, my bad. Danny, guys, Danny. Um, so I remember having to walk him through that and him thinking like, "Oh my gosh," and then even him feeling guilty, like, "Oh my god, I failed you. I wasn't there." And I don't know, I was like, "Bro, I've fallen so many times in my life. You can't be there every step of the way. And get off
I'm
me.
telling
When
you.
I need help, I'll tell you."
Oh man.
But yeah,
That's
so
funny because
go ahead.
it's funny because it makes me think about how the different ways that we communicate in our family, all our isms, all our ways that we talk and our
Yes.
slang and just our family language that I feel like we've come up with over the years. And with Brad being in our family for over 20 years now,
Mhm.
how do you feel like he's adapted to our unique way of communicating?
Oh, at first he was like, "What you mean by that?" And I'm like, I'll tell you later, especially you.
I know.
Or he'll be like, "Why are we laughing? That's not funny." I'm like, "Babe, you don't get it. It's you'll be all right." But he has. I'm telling you, Brad has. I feel like Brad has adapted well. He at
Mhm.
first he was kind of like, "I'm not sure. Should I be laughing? Is it okay for me to laugh at this?
Right.
Or if I laugh, I'm gonna get jumped. I want to make sure I'm not offending nobody." But Brad is he he's adapted well. I feel like he is immersed himself because think about it, when you love someone, you learn their love language.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love about him as a human being, not just as my husband and one of my best friends. Brad is easy to um, immerse himself in culture to appreciate it. He's a historian.
Mhm.
Lately, as of
Mhm.
late, we've been traveling and we've been going to different countries. That's something, doing different things on our bucket list. And when I say this man has, as sometimes educated me more on my culture, because like I said, Brad is a historian and is very appreciative and respectful of different things, not only in African American culture, but different cultures, period, around the world. And he
Right.
has, like I said, taught me some things. I mean, he's into genealogy, and he has gone back so far, and I was like, "Wow, baby, that's awesome." And I was like, "I didn't know I was related to
So
so and
also,
so and
who
so
these
and so."
people? Be like,
Yes,
who that is, Hoppo? Who this woman?
yes. But Preston, did you know? And I'm like, "Babe, no, I didn't know. I didn't know." And I even he had recently, I would say not recently, but then with the last 5 years, had came across one of our relatives that was a part of the Innocence Project. If I'm not mistaken, that's what it's called,
Mhm.
where he
Yeah.
was lynched and falsely accused, and he, because of doing genealogy and doing a lot of historical research on our backgrounds, he came across our cousin who had got this initiated, and they were sharing information and um, exchanging, like, just historical facts about our family and
Yeah.
about our relative that was lynched and wrongly accused, and how he got his name cleared. And
Mm.
to be honest and transparent in this moment, if it wasn't for Brad, I probably would not know about that.
Right.
So I feel like
I think
he,
a lot of historical stuff about our family and stuff like that,
yeah,
is definitely credited to him. Our knowledge of it is definitely credited to him because
yeah.
of how into history and all that stuff that, he enjoys
And
looking
cultural
up and
history.
finding.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
was like, "Why are you doing this?" He said, "Because I want our children to know our
right,
history." And it's not just his history, not just his white
right,
history,
right.
but my history as well. And he's like, I wanna leave this to them. This is our legacy." And I was like, "Wow." So even I have
Mm.
had an appreciation. So when he brings it to me, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing this with me."
So speaking of culture, what's something about Brad's culture that surprised you or took you time to understand?
Um, I would say culturally, I know he is Irish and Scottish, or
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Irish and English.
Yeah.
And he's really into that stuff. I remember the first time he asked me to make corned beef and cabbage. Not
Yeah.
because I never made it for St. Patrick's Day. I'm telling you right now. But this man loves his corned beef and cabbage. And I remember St. Patty's Day was coming up. And this is when our son was 3 or 4. He came home so proud. And he got these two t-shirts. One was his size and one was our son's size. And it said, "Kiss me, I'm Irish." And I said, "That's cute." And I looked at it and I was like,
My baby ain't Irish.
and our son was so happy that his daddy got him that shirt that he was wearing it to school. "I want to wear it to school. I want to wear it to school." And I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh gosh." Because I was like hesitant, like, "Oh gosh, I don't want nobody,
Right.
you know. But
Mhm,
Brad was
mhm.
like, "Well, technically he is Irish, 'cause I'm his daddy." And now, for those of you who don't know, our children are adopted. Um,
Mhm.
so, yeah, and our children are African American, like me. So I'm like, I had this little cute black boy wearing this shirt saying "Kiss me, I'm Irish." I'm like, oh, they're gonna say what is going on, And I remember Lucas wearing the shirt and coming home from school, and I'm just like, how'd it go? And he was like, it was fine. He says, somebody said something to me, and I was like, something like what? And he said they kept telling me I wasn't Irish because I'm black. And I was like, and what'd you say? He said, I'm black, but my dad's Irish, and because he's my dad, I'm Irish too.
I know that's
I
right.
was like, okay, baby, but yeah, like things like that. Like he's very like, these are my children, like he's always been. But like even I'm like, baby, in my head I'm thinking he can't wear that shirt.
Right.
But Brad is like, I'm his dad. He can wear whatever shirt he wants.
I agree. So
So yeah.
you've told us a little bit about your two kids,
Hmm.
and how they're adopted, my niece and nephew and everything.
Yeah.
Um so and you've kind of already touched on this a little bit about, Lucas being Irish,
Hmm.
and his little Irish shirt. So, but tell me about how you and Brad handle conversations about race and culture with them, because I'm
Like
sure, because I know there are tons of other um, situations that have come up, with Brad being a fully looking white man and
yeah,
two fully African American small children, because
yeah,
they were adopted at such a small
young age,
young
yeah.
age. And so I know you guys have experienced this, in many different ways, but how do you and Brad handle conversations about race and culture with them?
Well, first of all, I haven't experienced much because when they're with me, they just assume it's your kids.
Right.
Brad has had the most, I feel like, adverse, situations with him,
Reactions.
reactions. And I can tell you a ton. But it has never stopped him from being the dad he needs to be, and and and
Agreed.
and protecting and loving his black children. He knew they were black when we adopted them. We adopted them
Hmm.
out of foster care. We didn't, I remember when they asked us when we were going through adoption process, what what race do you want the children? They ask you that, and they say be very real with yourself because we don't give you your kids. You like I can't love them because they don't look like me.
Right.
And because we were interracial, they were like, what do you guys feel? Are you looking for a mixed kid? And they're like, what race? And it was Brad who said the human race is all we care about. We just
Mm.
want to be parents. I don't, and unfortunately, there are more African American children in foster care than any other race.
Right.
So there will be a higher number of African American children available. So they're like, so that will be but if you want to wait for something else, but we're just letting you know this is the race that has the higher population in foster care, so they will have more children available with that race. And Brad didn't care about that. And I just know that from the jump, we had conversations before even thinking about adopting, because they're gonna be looked at differently. They're gonna be,
Right.
and I want to. And my conversation with him was like, okay, baby, we're saying that we don't care what race they are. So for me, that means you are saying that when adverse situations come up, you're gonna stand 10 toes down
You
for
know what
our
I'm saying?
babies. I
To the
do.
ground.
I don't want to ever feel like you are not going to protect or you're going to shrink back. So
Hmm.
if you are feeling that that might be a possibility, let's not do this.
Mm.
And he was like, I don't care what race they are. And if we get a black child, I'm going to be that child's father. And I'm going to protect and love them like as a father would and should. And he
Hmm.
has proven that time and time again. Time and
Oh
time again.
yeah, for sure.
So
Always keeping it 100.
yeah. And there has been times we've had conversations, like even with my son who was playing football. They were going to a school that was predominantly white. And it was playing high school football. And actually, he was in middle school at the time. And we were in a part of Florida that I was just like, I'm not feeling comfortable.
Hmm.
I don't, and I'm like, we got to the park where the football game was, and I was just like, when this is over, we are out of here. And my
Not even
son,
over. Sometimes you gotta leave early.
right. And my son was just like, it's like kind of like oblivious to it. We've had these talks about being safe, being aware of your surroundings. Like, not everyone that's looking in your face is for you. So
Right.
be careful. And I remember we were getting ready to head out, and we were looking for Lucas, and Brad had said when the game was over we need to meet here. We just couldn't find him. And he
Mm.
was talking to some girl. But what Brad saw was while he was talking to this girl, shooting his little Mac shot, whatever, trying to be all hee hee. There were, I would say, about 3 men looking at him, and your nephew, he looks a lot older than he is.
He is. He's super tall. He's real athletic build,
Yeah,
fit, just
yeah,
yeah, he's big.
yeah. And so he's looking. These 3 men are looking at him, and that's how Brad found him because he's just scanning the crowd. He's like, we told this boy to be here at this time, and we don't see him. So now we're all looking, and Brad says, "Babe, look," and he points to these 3 men watching him talk to this girl. And that's when Brad saw their eyesight, their line of sight. That's when he went over there and got your nephew. And then
Nasty
I'm
move.
gonna tell you, the car ride home was not a quiet one because he was just like, "You," I said, he's like, "I'm telling you this because I love you. You didn't see what I saw, and there's no telling what they were thinking." And if
Mm.
it could have been like, man, that boy played some good ball, but it didn't look. I'm telling you, posture, demeanor, it didn't
Right.
look like that. So he was just like, I'm telling you, like, don't get caught up in, because this neighborhood we live in, because of the school I go to, that everybody is for me. And
Right.
we've had those hard conversations and had those hard talks, and 99% of the time they are led by Brad because he does not want them to be caught off guard or not to say they didn't know, right? They don't,
Right.
that privilege of I have a white parent, so now I'm just blanket it safe because you're not,
Right.
and he can't be with them all the time, and neither can I.
Mm. Yeah, that's real. So, how have the kids responded to these types of conversations now? Like they're getting ready to graduate 12th, 11th grade,
Yeah.
you know. How do you feel like just over time all this conversation that you and Brad have had with them, how do you feel like their foresight now is when it comes to their surroundings?
Oh, girl, it is so much. It is when I say better, they are better for it. My
Mm,
art, your niece. Hey, she is very very aware, and when
yeah,
things are
she
not
is.
right she is very like, this is what this is feeling like. I'm going to speak on it, or I'm going to make sure I'm in a different situation. We've had this conversation even regarding teachers, like, hey,
Yeah.
like, I and I was like, this teacher is really, I don't know, this is the vibe I'm getting. Like, you have the right to advocate and get your class changed, or just say this is making me uncomfortable, and I don't have to be a part of that. They are very aware of how to advocate for themselves, of how to really just speak up when they see things that are not right. And it's because of having those real conversations. Like, you want to prepare your children. Um, Brad and I have always prided ourselves on preparing our children for the future, but that's really just, you want to get a return from your investment. And what we have invested in them is humanity. Treat people
Amen.
the way you want to be treated. And when you see somebody who needs help that can't fight for themselves, speak up.
Mm,
And that is who, especially my daughter, that is who she is through and through. With my profession, she has come to me with different situations. And I'm like, do you want mommy hat or do you want social worker therapist hat? She's like, well, I want to
mhm.
tell you as my mom, and then you put the other hat on and tell me what can be done. And so
That'd
there's
be
been different
so true. You'd be
situations.
like, hold on, who you want to talk
Yeah,
to right now?
right. 'Cause I'm like, do I need to make a call? And she's like, wait, mom, wait. But I feel like we have really prepared them for the climate we are in now.
Hmm.
We have prepared them to when I am gone and Brian is gone, that they will be good. they will be good, and that is one of the things we look forward to, um, for their future. So I feel
Yeah.
like we've really helped them to be, I don't want to say woke, but to be able to use sound judgment.
Yeah. Ain't nothing wrong with being woke. Shoot.
No, no, no. I'm not saying anything wrong with it, but I'm just saying that because you could be woke and still be dumb
You
and fall,
right.
if and not educated. When I say
Yep.
sound, that would have sound judgment. Be woke, but be educated too.
Oh my gosh,
Make
girl.
educated
And
decisions.
we
Yeah.
should put that on a t-shirt because how many times have I seen the wokeness without the education? My gosh.
Yes.
It's
And
like,
what does
is
it make
that
you
even a
sound like?
thing?
Yeah. Right.
Ugh.
Or you just you want to be part of that movement, but you don't know nothing about it. Like don't jump on the bandwagon. If you're gonna take
I
ownership of
agree.
something, be invested in it and know about it, learn about it.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. So what would you say is a secret sauce to like maintaining your identity and your authenticity while building a life with someone from a different background or culture?
Be you. Be you to the fullest of your ability because at the end of the day, the good, the bad, the ugly is what I bring to our relationship because I'm not perfect. But I
Hmm.
know if I was anybody but me, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. And same for him.
I agree.
And same for him. Like think about it. If he just went with the flow or, drank the Kool-Aid,
Right.
he would be able to appreciate our cultural differences that make our family
Yeah.
beautiful.
Because you know what they say? What's that saying? People say, uh, be yourself because everybody else is taken.
Yes.
Hmm.
So like, I don't like what would this and like we have our funny moments, our serious moments, our we laugh a lot together. And I feel like that's because I know that Brad loves all of me
Yeah.
and I love all of him. And even when it gets hard, because not because of us, but because of outside influences,
I know. Tell me about it. My God.
like so for example, I work with kids, and I remember I was
Hmm.
in a therapy session with one of my students, and he came to my office, and in my office I have my family displayed on my wall, and it says the beats of my heart,
Hmm.
and I have you up there, I have your family, I have
Hmm.
mom and his parents, and I have our kids, and I remember this young man, African American little boy, came in, and we were talking, and he didn't pay attention at first, and we were talking, and he was like, thank you, Miss Sanders, for helping me out with this and blah blah blah, and we're getting ready to go, and I was setting up our next time with him, and he looks, and he was like, "Who are these people on your wall?" And I said, "Do you see what the top of that sign says?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "That's the beats of my heart mean the people I love." And he said, "Who that white man?" And I said, "Who do you think he is?" I said, "Look at all the other pictures he is." He said, "I'm sorry. Who do you think he is?" And he was like, is that your husband?" No, I'm sorry. He said, "Is that your boyfriend?" I said, "He's my forever boyfriend, but he been my husband the last 18 years." At the time, I was around 18 years. And he
That's
was like,
right.
"Oh." He's like, "Man, Miss Sanders, I thought you was cool. You part of the problem." And I was like, "Whoa." Now he is 8 or 9 years old. I think it was 9 years old. And I said, "I'm part of the problem." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You married a white man. Like you you could have found somebody else that was black."
Mm.
And I said, "Oh," I said, "Thank you for sharing your opinion that nobody asked for." But I said, "I chose him and he chose me because that's who chose to love me and I choose to love him." I said, "I'm not saying there wasn't somebody that was black that couldn't do the same thing, but at the time, this
Hmm.
is who I chose." And he continues to love me. He's like, "Even your kids? I know it's your kids." I said, "What you mean my kids?" This little boy had me bent in my office. You hear me? And
My
I said,
God.
"I know." I said, "Those are our kids." He's like, "Oh, he didn't marry you with two kids?" I said, "No." I said, "We adopted." They were 2 and 3 when we adopted them. So they're already here. He was like, "Oh, okay." He was like, That's true. That's true. I'm glad you happy, and I'm glad it worked out." And I was like, "Yeah." But he was speaking in front, and he would start talking a little bit more. He's like, "Oh, you know, my dad said he loved my mom, but he always in jail, or he don't come and see me sometime, and they get into fights." He's like, "Yeah, so I guess you did all right." And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "What works for our family works for our family." And I said, "He's a
Mm-hmm.
great dad, and he's been since we decided to adopt our children. He's been ever present in their lives." He's like, "Yeah, that's what's up. I guess it don't matter if you white." I said, "No, it don't." He said, "All right, Miss Sanders, you're still cool. You're still cool."
He done
I'm
gave you
like,
back your black card.
"Yes," because
That boy
girl, he
snatched it. He
snatched
said,
it.
"Give me that black card, girl. You don't deserve it." And then he was by the end of the conversation, he like, "Here you go. You can have your card back."
Yeah. Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. I said, and I was like, isn't it important for them to have a father figure in their life who loves them consistently and unconditionally and has been there since they've become our children? He was like, yeah. And I said, now, and explained, I shared all the qualities that Brad had, and I was like, now put the color to it. Does it matter?
Mm.
He was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. I had to break it down. So I was like, you saying all these
Mhm.
things, you know,
Right.
but I had to make sure he understood. So yeah,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it don't matter.
yeah, yeah.
Although there are people that feel on in many cultures that feel very strongly about it. That it does matter. That you date and marry within your own race.
And that whatever works for them, girl.
You know what I'm
Whatever works
saying?
for them. Because I know it works for me.
And remember that little meme, that little girl trying to put on her seatbelt, and she be like, "Worry about yourself."
Yes, worry about your own
That's,
self.
what I'm saying. Worry about yourself. What
Yeah.
works for you, works for you. What works for me, works for me.
And girl, like Brad wasn't the first person I dated.
Right,
Okay. He's the first white person that I dated,
right,
but
right,
not the first person that I dated. And
right, right,
there were
right.
people that said, you cool, your personality's awesome, but I can't deal with this. And
Yeah,
then
with the
this,
disability.
yes.
Yeah,
So come on now, like, yeah, girl,
you
don't get me
right.
going down a rabbit hole.
Know what I'm saying? Yeah, so we got lots of stories we could tell for sure. So with all of that, over this 20 plus year span with you and Brad, tell me about like some or a tradition or practice that you and Brad have created together that blends both of your cultures.
Oh gosh. Um, I would say our love for reading. Like I said, Brad is very in depth when it comes to history.
Mm-hmm.
I love to read. He loves to read. But one thing that we have really taken pride in and building in our family is of course reading the fiction books, the don't some of the little spicy books, some books
Mm-hmm.
that are this and that, or me, I'm a horror freak, so I love different, like,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
horror genres and stuff, but really taking time also to educate ourselves and learn about cultural things, and making sure we share those books with our children, um, giving it to them as gifts, and when we give ourselves, not ourselves, when we give each other books. One of the traditions that we have started even more recently is on Christmas Eve. We exchange books, and all the books that we give each other, we dedicate them. So we are a family of avid readers, and so before the kids, we would buy the book on the Kindle, right? Read it. If we love it, we buy the hard copy for our shelf, and then a paperback version of it as a loaner. That is hell of expensive, right? So
Hell yeah. Y'all some curds. That's what I call them. Her, my daughter, my niece, nephew, my brother-in-law, because I don't call him my brother-in-law, he's my brother-in-law. But they're all curds, cool nerds, because when
yeah,
the way they design these books and stuff, I mean, it's crazy.
yeah. So we used to do that quite often, but then it got to be a little expensive. And then you adopt two kids, you're like, oh, let me just buy the Kindle version and read and be happy. And so their tradition is called Yola Book of Flood, and it's basically the flood of the books. And on Christmas Eve, you exchange books and you dedicate them to each other, and then you spend all of Christmas Eve reading. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's books of like, oh, I love sci-fi or horror. You get one of those, and other times it's books on education. Um, Not just education as far as like just learning, but like cultural education or
Hmm.
whatever else you're interested in, or it's something that is culturally inept for you. Like I no, not just books on just general education, but education as to who you are as a person. Your history. Where you come from. Um, Things that we feel like would be good for them to know, and
Hmm.
also for them to feel their identity is solidified.
Hmm.
So
I love that.
yeah, that's something we do. And we spend Christmas Eve reading, and we have so many. I think I have more books than anything else and in our house, which is okay. So
A
and then we
whole
have
wall,
conversations.
guys. Literally a whole wall of books.
That's just on the shelf, but we have other books. I have
In
and
her
then
room in the corner. Like it's getting a little out of control, y'all. I'm telling y'all. If my sister ever became a hoarder, it would just be literally be books. That's it.
I'm trying. I'm getting better. My TBR list, which is to be read, it's thick, but I'm reading. I've already got my little goal set for the year, how many books I want to read, and as I'm reading them, I am putting them in drawers and different things. I just don't have enough space on the shelf. The shelf is full, and it's a ceiling to floor IKEA shelf, holds a lot
Hmm.
of books, and it's full. So, yeah.
So you and Brad have, I would dare say, almost mastered the cultural differences over the years in your relationship. And but I do know that they can still sometimes pop up. So when
Yeah,
they do, how do you feel like you guys handle those times when those cultural differences pop up? And like what's your, I wouldn't say go to, but like what's a few ways that you guys kind of, you know what, when these happen, this is what we do, A, B, and C.
we talk about it in love.
What does that look like?
So sometimes that means somebody's maybe offended or hurt, or not sure how to navigate something that's happened, or something I was
Hmm.
said. It might not even be personal to us. It might be like, oh, my girlfriend told me this happened, and I'm feeling like this about it, or mom, this happened at school, and I'm feeling like this, and or Brad's feeling a certain way. Talking about it in love, because our home is our safe space.
Yeah.
Really creating that space is important. That's something we've like really tried wholeheartedly and gave a lot of effort to, because there are things that we talk about that you might not be able to talk about other places because it's gonna offend people.
Mm.
It's gonna feel like, I don't know if I can say this because they're gonna judge me.
Right.
And I remember having a conversation at our dinner table when Anaya was, how old was she? She was, I think, 8 or 9, and we were talking about Black History Month, right? And different people, and she was learning a lot of different things. And she would come home and talk to me because her dad is white and her mom is black. And I remember
Hmm.
her saying, she was expressing with her fierce little 9-year-old heart how these injustices were horrible. And I
Right.
think she had to do a book report on, it wasn't it was someone, it was a civil rights activist. I'm not sure can't remember who it was, but she had to do a book report on a civil rights activist, and she learned a lot. And she came across a picture in a book, and in the book, gosh, I can't remember the name because I remember we talked about it in depth of the book. But in the book, it was a picture of dogs being sicked on black people,
Mm.
um, and they were being sprayed with hoses. And we were talking about it at the table, and she just, because she felt safe, she said how she felt. And I remember her. She saying, "Daddy," she said, "I love you to death, but if I was living in this time, I don't know if I would be able to love you."
Mm.
And I was like, wow, but it wasn't nothing to do with Brad, right? But
Right.
just learning the things she learned, and feeling what she was feeling. Like she's like, I didn't know these kind of things happen. And
Right.
and even in her mind, us working it out, even Lucas saying like, you know what? Back in the day, y'all wouldn't be able to be married.
Nope.
And we're like, yep. So we would have those conversations, but I feel like that is because she felt safe to say that and still love her daddy because we were teaching them and already having those conversations. Like
Mm-hmm.
this happened. This is real. These things happen to people, and it's not fair. It shouldn't have. And it doesn't make
Right.
any sense to you because you're not being raised that way. And it's hard to believe some people still agree with that kind of stuff. But for her to feel the freedom and the security in her relationship with her dad to say, in this moment, this is making me feel like this. And you know what, daddy, I don't know if I could love you if it was back in those days. And Bradfield would be able
Mm-hmm.
to help her talk through that and not be offended or not throw his hands up and say, well, that wasn't me. That had nothing to do with me. But like really hear her
Right.
and help her process. So I feel like having a safe space to have these conversations with people you love
Mm-hmm.
is imperative to being successful and balancing cultural differences and different things like that. And really navigating, even making sure your space stays safe when you have a lot of things happening around you that can really make it not feel like a safe place.
Look, what they say, ships don't sink because of the water around it. They sink because of the water that get in it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So this has been such a good episode so far. Like I feel like
Yes.
we can go on talking for hours about
That's
many, many different things.
that's what we do anyway.
Exactly. So just so y'all know, my sister will probably be on my podcast many, many, many times because we can talk about so many things. But
Yes.
before we go, what's one piece of advice or wisdom that you can drop on our listeners who may feel like they're losing themselves while trying to fit into their partner's world?
What I would say that I would want them to take away is just remember that relationships are partnerships, right? And both people deserve to feel seen, respected, and whole as a person.
Mm,
And if you feel like you're losing yourself, um, I would say do some self reflection because I feel
mm.
like you don't change, like you don't change who you are authentically unless you're being pushed to do that because you don't fit in or because it's not healthy.
Oh, girl, talk about it.
So I would say do some self reflection. Like if I love soul food and then I got with Brad and I never ate soul food again, why?
Right.
Why would I do that or take away that piece of me that I love? Or like just say, let's just say Brad and I got together and I love reading, and then I decided, I'm not reading anymore, guys, because he's not a reader.
Mm,
That's like, why would I do that? Like that's self sabotage. And
right.
that's something you bring to the table that's good. Remember, self-reflect because if they're not telling you have to change, or maybe they are and they're giving you subliminal messages,
Right.
you need to have a conversation because a relationship is a partnership and it's the good, the bad, the ugly, and the different. And it's okay to be different.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yes, we're gonna snap on that one. Snap, snap, snap.
Yes.
Okay. Because, a lot of times I think people are afraid
Yeah,
to be themselves. But even on the other hand of it, I feel like the difficulty might not even be, like you said, within them and their partner, but it's just all the outside noise,
yeah,
that can be causing the difficulty that they're feeling.
yeah.
So, but I think it's still, no matter what it is, you still need to go back, like you said, and take a look at yourself and, to figure out if this is healthy, if it's working, if it's, you know,
Absolutely. If it's
all those questions.
beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's beneficial, for sure.
Am I changing myself
Wow.
to fit in your box because there's no space for me? You know what
Mm.
I mean?
Mhm.
Because when you're
Yeah.
when you with me, there's not a box. We just living free.
Mhm.
So
Right, right.
I want the same thing from you.
Yes, yes. Oh man, guys, thank you so much, Destiny.
You're
So,
welcome.
usually I ask,
Yeah.
is there anything, any socials that you want to provide for the people that be like, you know what, I like Destiny. I like how she be vibing. Let me go follow Destiny. Is there anything you want to provide for that, or you like stay out my business?
Stay out my business. Those who follow me know me, and I am a protector of peace. You know that about me, girl. I am a
Yes.
protector of peace. So, if you want to follow any social media of mine, I don't encourage it. I do have a photography business called The
Mm,
Designs of Destiny. You can find that on
boom.
Facebook and Instagram. But outside of that,
Hmm.
no, I don't have any public pages. I protect my peace and I protect my family, and I'm not. Yeah, I don't do that. So
All right, girl. Look. If y'all want to follow my sister, she will be on my podcast multiple times,
yes,
so y'all
yes.
can follow my podcast, and then y'all can follow my sister. Awesome.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for having me, babe. It has been awesome. Thank you so much for this. And I can't wait to be on more episodes.
Yay!
That's all for today's episode of the Living Room Vibe podcast, where real people have raw conversations. I'm your host, Danny Lourdes. Thanks for vibing with me. If you're feeling the vibe, follow us on Instagram at the LRV podcast, as well as hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. It helps more people find their way to our living room. And as always, thanks for listening. Bye.